What is going on, everybody? Today we have a long-awaited review for me personally and maybe you guys too, and that's on the Adidas Evo SLs. And honestly, I don't think they're worth the wait. So as always, we are going to start off with the outsole or the traction performance on the shoe. So Adidas typically puts Continental rubber on their more premium daily trainers, which is what this shoe has. And as you can see, it doesn't really have a traditional running shoe traction pattern. As you can tell, it's a very thin layer of the outsole versus a lot of more traditional running shoes kind of have a pattern, or kind of like what Nike puts with their lugs on the bottom of the shoe, their waffle lugs. But this is a very different looking outsole, and if I'm talking just from a traction point of view, I have to say I'm very disappointed. And I think it's a little bit unfair because I'm comparing this Continental rubber to what they use in the Adidas Boston 12s, which was some of the best traction I've ever had on a running shoe. But I do think that it's because they use this outsole pattern instead of a more traditional like herringbone or something that protrudes out of the shoe, versus this one is very flat. So I just felt myself not really secure unless it was a perfectly paved road, which now that I'm in LA, it's a little bit less common. I'm running on a little bit more different surfaces as I've moved here, and I just felt that it didn't really hold up. So I did run on the beach, so with a little bit of sand on the road, I felt that the traction was really bad. I felt like I was gonna slip, or I felt like I was losing a little bit of energy trying to plant my foot properly before I took my next step. And as for, dirt roads, I also just didn't feel that the outsole kind of held up very well from a traction point of view. It just didn't feel as sticky as traditional Continental rubber on previous Adidas models. So from a traction point of view, I think if you're typically running on just perfectly paved, brand new roads, you're gonna be good to go. But like I said, if you're running on different surfaces from time to time and traction is a big deal for you, then I would say that you should maybe pass on this shoe, just because I think that this traction is some of the worst that I've experienced on an Adidas running shoe in a while. So that pretty much covers the traction performance. Let's talk about the durability on this outsole. So I have put around 40 miles on this shoe, and I would say that the Continental rubber is holding up on that end of the outsole. So the durability looks to be pretty decent so far. I don't really see any signs of wearing, and honestly, I can't tell how much has actually worn down because the outsole is so unorthodox. It's just like a strip of that rubber, but it looks like brand new. It looks exactly how it did right out the box, which is a little bit surprising because when you hold these are super, super light shoes, and you just wouldn't think that this rubber outsole would be very durable. As I said, it doesn't have any rubber protruding out. That was a pleasant surprise. I would say durability is going to be pretty decent on the shoe, but like I said, the traction performance, it's kind of tough to say, but it's pretty bad for a running shoe. And I don't even think that traction is something that you should even think twice about in a running shoe. So if I am mentioning it, that means that I personally didn't have a good experience with the traction on this shoe. So durability gets a good, but the traction performance, I think for me, gets a bad or below average. Now moving on to the midsole or the cushion setup of the Adidas Evo SL, which is one of the reasons why I was looking forward to this shoe so much and so heartbroken when I didn't get these back in October. It's a full-length Light Strike Pro with a 6mm heel to toe drop. I believe you have 40mm in the heel, dropping to 34mm in the forefoot. So if you're not familiar, Adidas Light Strike Pro is kind of Adidas's race foam or more premium foam, which I previously have liked in other past models. I believe that this shoe also has a little TPU shank plate in the midfoot. I don't think it qualifies as rods or as a carbon plate or a plastic plate where it runs a little bit longer in your foot. It's literally just in the middle of it, if I'm not mistaken. Someone please correct me in the comment section down below. But I also didn't feel that there was a plate while I was running, and I think that that's a good thing. Priced at $150, I think you are getting a premium foam in Adidas Light Strike Pro, and you are getting a little bit more support with that little TPU shank. But with those specs out of the way, how did this shoe feel? In my opinion, it felt a little bit unstable. Now, I am by no means a stability runner. I don't really wear stability running shoes, and I don't really need stability running shoes in my opinion. But with this shoe, I just felt that it was kind of an interesting mix of when I was running slow, it was really soft, the midsole, and I felt like I was unstable in the shoe. And then when I was running a little bit faster, the Lightstrike Pro kind of adapted to that and firmed up, which was nice. But I still felt that it was a little bit unstable for my liking, and typically on the long runs, when my form starts to deteriorate, I feel like this shoe did not give enough stability in the midsole for myself personally. Now keep in mind, I am 6'1", 210 pounds, so I am a little bit heavier than the average runner. So maybe that's a me issue, but if you're kind of like me, or you know that your running form starts to go down as the miles go up, you might want to pass on this shoe just due to the stability reasons. Now, I don't think that the width of the shoe is anything to kind of criticize. I think that the width is actually pretty decent for kind of one of these shoes where it's a little bit lighter and a little bit faster. Typically those shoes are pretty narrow, but in the forefoot as well as the heel, it does give plenty of width from a platform point of view. Like I said, it's mostly just the foam, where when I was running a little bit slower, I felt that it was a little bit too soft and it was a little bit too unstable for my liking. But when I did pick up the pace, it did feel a little bit firmer, which I personally like. And I also felt that 6mm heel to toe drop as well as an aggressive rocker in the shoe. So when you are running faster, it is pretty pleasant because it does firm up and it does give you a little bit of propulsion with that little bit of that rocker in the forefoot. I think it is a more aggressive shoe, which is what Adidas designed it for, but it just kind of didn't really do anything too well for me, in my opinion. Like, if I were to run in the shoe for a tempo run, I felt like it wasn't snappy enough. And then when I picked the shoe for maybe a long run or a slower run, I just felt like it was a little bit unstable. So for me, I feel like the cushion setup was a little bit confusing. On paper, it looks like it's gonna be good to go and you're gonna enjoy running in these a lot. But for me personally, I felt like I found it a little bit lackluster, and I was a little bit disappointed, if I'm being honest, from a cushion point of view. And last but not least, we are going to talk about the Adidas Adizero Evo SL's upper. Now, I thought that the upper was going to be fantastic just because from pictures, it kind of looks like the Adidas Pro Evo 1 or Evo Pro 1, which is that $500 shoe that I am probably not even buying if I can get my hands on that. But the upper looks very no frills, no gimmicks. It just looks like a lightweight mesh upper, which I feel like it is. Like, there's a little bit of fuse or a little bit of reinforcements throughout the upper, but for the most part, it is a very light upper and it's pretty breathable. But I will say that the fit was a little bit sloppy on this shoe. Now, I have no problem with the upper whatsoever when it comes to just the feel of the upper. It feels like a pretty good mesh or fuse, and it is very, very lightweight. Like, this shoe feels kind of like a race shoe when it comes to weight. But where I had the most problems was definitely the fit. It just felt a little bit sloppy. Now, I typically wear a size 12, normal size 12, even though I have a wider than average foot. And from a width point of view, if you do have a wide foot, these are gonna actually accommodate you quite well. But where I felt the fit was a little bit sloppy was definitely in the heel lockdown, and just the fit in general. Throughout the whole shoe, I just felt like there was a little bit too much room. And when I was picking up the pace or I was running faster, I felt like the shoe was kind of moving around, or my foot was moving around in the shoe, which is never what you want to feel when you're running faster. And then when I was running a little bit slower, I felt like the shoe contained my foot pretty well, especially when I tied the laces pretty tight. But then I had the problems of the stability of the cushion setup. So overall, I mean, I would say go true to size if you have a wide foot like I do. You still might have to noodle around with the laces a little bit to get the correct fit. I personally never found that one-to-one fit, but also I wouldn't have gone half a size up or half a size down in this shoe. If you do have a narrow foot or kind of a normal foot, maybe you could get away with half a size down, but then I would be worried a little bit about the length of the shoe. So it's just a little bit confusing. I think that the upper materials and the upper execution felt really good from Adidas, but I think that they need to dial in their fit a little bit more. In my experience also with Adidas running, Adidas basketball, all of my Adidas shoes, I feel like their shoes just fit a little bit inconsistently compared to like the likes of Nike, maybe Asics, New Balance. I feel like those brands are a little bit more consistent with their sizing and also maybe their uppers. But no shots at Adidas for that. They have made some great shoes in the past. I just wish that the last maybe felt a little bit more consistent throughout their whole line. So that's my opinion on the upper and the fit. So overall, priced at $150, the Adidas Evo SLs, or Adidas Adizero Evo SLs, for me, I can't recommend them in good faith just because of the experience that I have with the shoe. Again, I have put over 40 miles on the shoe. I've tested it in fast runs, slow runs, long runs, and I just felt a little bit underwhelmed, and I was not really satisfied with this shoe. Maybe it's because I had super high expectations. Maybe it's because Adidas hyped them up a little bit with, you know, the drawing and the lottery and making them a little bit harder to get, making us all wait. And then when I finally got the shoe, I was a little bit disappointed. So it kind of falls in the in-between of like, it's not really good for slow runs because of the stability for me. And then when I pick up the pace in them, my foot kind of moves around in the footbed a lot, but the cushion feels a little bit better, and then the traction just felt not good to me in general. Maybe it's because I've been running on the beach with a sandy road, or the trails that I run in or something. I don't know. Like, I know that this is a road running shoe, but even on the road, I didn't feel completely like taken care of from a traction point of view, unless it was like a completely flat road with no gravel, no rocks or anything. So I guess if that's what you're typically running on, then traction will be good. But then again, there's a whole bunch of issues with the fit and then the cushion setup. So, I mean, if you're really interested in this shoe and it intrigues you, I would please recommend you to try these on in store just to see if it fits your foot properly. One, and two, if the cushion setup feels good to you. It's gonna feel really soft, especially if you're just walking around in the store, which is really nice from a step-in point of view, but really take into consideration like what it's gonna feel like when you run in the shoe. So with all that being said, I think $150 was a fair price point from Adidas to give us all of the technology that they did. I just feel like they could have executed a little bit better. Like for me, if I was the designer or maybe making the Evo SL2, I personally would make the protruding outsole with the Continental rubber that kind of looks like the Adizero Boston 12, so that it would give a more consistent grip on multi-surface. And then for the cushion setup, I honestly don't know how much I would change, but maybe like have what the Adizero SL2s had, where they kind of had a casing foam around the Lightstrike Pro of just regular Lightstrike, so it's a little bit firmer and it gives a little bit more stability. I think the width of this one is better than the SL2s, but that's how I would increase the stability of the shoe. And then from an upper point of view, honestly, I wouldn't change the upper like pretty much at all. I really like the upper materials and I like the way the upper feels, but I would change the last or the fit of the shoe, and I would make it a little bit more snug, as well as if there was a way to kind of tighten up the heel lockdown. So that's kind of how I guess I would design the shoe if Adidas is listening at all. But I think that this is a great shoe just from an innovation standpoint. I like the price point, I like the idea behind the shoe, but as for execution or my experience in the shoe, I just personally didn't think it was worth the $150, but I like the direction Adidas is going. So thank you guys so much for watching this review. I hope you found this insightful. I don't want to hate on Adidas or anything for their running shoes. I think that they make fantastic running shoes, but this one just kind of missed the mark for me and it was a little bit inconsistent in all scenarios. So just wanted to share my honest thoughts with you guys. Let me know in the comment section down below if you guys have a pair of the Evo SLs, or if you guys are considering the Evo SLs, maybe what other shoes you're considering versus this shoe. Personally, I really like the Pegasus 41s, the Nova Blast 5s, and the Saucony Ride 18s over this shoe, and I know that might be a hot take because this shoe is definitely more hyped up, and honestly I love the look of this shoe. Like, I know this is just a basic white and black colorway, but I love how the stripes kind of go over the midsole. I just think it's a cool look. It kind of looks like the $500 race shoe that Adidas makes, but yeah, unfortunately it just didn't perform well for me. So that's gonna pretty much wrap up the video. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will catch you guys in the next one. Peace.